Welcome back to the Conspiracy Outpost. I'm your host, Casey.
I'm Mike.
I'm Joe.
I'm Nate Nasty.
Around the globe, dating back to ancient times and even now, theories of the flat Earth started arising. Are we on a disc skipping through the universe or on a ball spinning to no end? Is the flat Earth an unproven theory or an elaborate hoax? Well, today we have a special guest joining us to give us his expert opinion on the matter. So without further delay, let us introduce Mark Sargent.
Hi, guys. By the way, thank you for having me, and thank you for being the most delayed podcast I've ever done. Meaning, you guys booked this 6 months ago. And I remember when I got it, I was like, 6 months?
The host is on top of shit, yeah.
It's like, smokes, you know how much, what could happen between now and then? It's like, all right, sure, yeah. Why not? 6 months. If you guys can actually remember to do it, here we are, 6 months later. So
yeah, I wasn't sure how hard it is to book someone for an interview, so I wanted to give me plenty of time, you know.
you're actually, you could have almost had a kid. I mean, seriously.
You're actually our first guest on this podcast, so it's
nice. Wait a minute. I'm your first guest. And you booked me 6 months out?
Yeah.
We could have probably got several more guests in that time.
You would have been more insulting if you would have bumped me like this week. Like, yeah, sorry, can't do it this week. That would have been perfect. I would have read you guys the riot act, but I would have remembered that story forever. So anyway, so what do you guys? I gotta ask, what made you call me? How'd you get into this? Or somebody over there got into this?
Well, we're just a conspiracy podcast. We just talk about everything, whether we believe it or not. And flat Earth's one of the biggest conspiracies out there. So we thought we'd dive on into it and see if we can get someone on. And you're one of the main people that I know that's one of the main proponents for flat Earth, so it's super awesome that we got you.
Yeah. No worries at all. And yeah, it is the biggest thing out there, physically and as far as getting people triggered. There is no topic in the conspiracy world that gets people more triggered than this, which is weird because there's a lot of touchy subjects out there. If you talk about like JFK or 9/11 or Sandy Hook or stuff like that.
Yeah, or the multitude of Nazi ones that are out there.
Yeah,
your paperclip and everything.
People do get worked up, but flat Earth really gets people worked up, and I've been doing this for over 7 years because it is the only thing we debunk to children. There's no other topic we bring up to a first grade class in the conspiracy world except for flat Earth. You put the globe literally like in the first week they're there. It's like, oh yeah, people used to think the Earth was flat, but now we know it looks like this. And you put that little nice blue toy and you spin it around and that's it. And then you put it in the corner of the classroom and you leave it there for 12 years. Then, so.
That's probably why one of the reasons why people get so upset with it, why it can be such a touchy subject, is because it's like such a fundamental understanding that people have, right? Like something with politics, it's like, oh yeah, political shit happens. There's all these different interests and motivations in doing it. But for like the flat Earth, it's kind of difficult to ascertain the motivation for keeping up this conspiracy.
Well, okay, there's a couple points you touched on there, but the first one is, people get triggered mostly because of the conditioning. If you're told this your entire life, you might as well, the only thing I compare it to is telling somebody after they've turned like 30 years old that they're adopted. You throw that at somebody and they'd be like, get out of here. And then you just keep like putting files on their desk. That's like, nope, this is why. And then all of a sudden, if they, that glimmer sinks in that they might be adopted, then it just ripples back in time and they freak out. You get one of those weird movie montage flashbacks where it really, you get a weird form of PTSD. But as far as why, to the second point there, it's like, why keep this a secret? right?
Yeah.
You're a conspiracy group.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to cover the basics of conspiracies. You keep this a secret because, in fact, mostly I've kind of changed my tune on this, where the big reason why you keep it a secret is because of just bad timing. Meaning, we didn't even know for sure what this world looked like. And by the way, it's not some Asgard pancake thing flying through space. It's just the Thor movies did us no favors at all. Cosmic waterfalls. Like, oh god.
Well, Terry Pratchett did it pretty well. Discworld was the shit.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you keep it a secret because if our best and brightest didn't figure it out until about 1960. Our civilization has already been established. Everything's already been built. The infrastructure's already been laid, and it's not what you stand to gain. It's what you stand to lose. So if you're part of, I call them the authority. You want to call them whatever, combination of overlapping groups, the Illuminati, the Bilderbergs, the Rothschilds, the CFR, trilaterals, blah, blah, blah. And just go on and on but they all, they're all spider webs within spider webs. I call them the authority. And the authority doesn't take chances with power. So if all of a sudden you find out in 1960 that you're living inside a building, really, you sit down. It's a very short meeting, which is, okay, what could go wrong? You sit around the X-Files, if you remember the X-Files, where, dark table, everyone's smoking for some reason. And the guy at the end is like, well, what's the worst that could happen? And there's three things that could happen that are really, really horrible. One, academically, all your physical sciences just get turned upside down immediately. I mean, not just astronomy and astrophysics, which get gutted. Any of your remaining physical sciences, geology, hydrology, biology, whatever, those just get, libraries have to be emptied and restocked, and it would take forever. And that's every university in the world. Economically, you would have to suspend markets for months. I don't know how many months, just because you don't know what it means from the financial sector, but it would mean a lot. The markets react on anything nowadays. And then the last one would be the religious side of it. So you're giving the five major religious houses of this world, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, and Christianity. You're giving them all leverage against science simultaneously. And you're asking all these groups that hold sway over, 80% of the population, to show restraint against an institution of science that's been beating them over the heads with textbooks for at least 5 centuries. That's a really short Illuminati meeting. It's yeah, we're gonna put a pin in this. Nobody's saying anything until we can figure out how to disseminate it to the public, and that's it. In 1960, you make that decision. It's like, okay, we don't tell anybody. Let's lock down whatever we can to keep anyone from accidentally figuring this out. So you lock down Antarctica with the Antarctic Treaty, and you militarize space. And that's it. And then you just spend more and more money to cover it up, and it starts out really slow. And 1960 was fairly easy to do. Now, much more difficult because of little things in the way. There's some things you can kick the can down the road, like the moon program, for example, Artemis, which you've probably heard of. That's supposedly the new moon program, where they swear, the first new person to be on the moon's going to be a woman, and I don't know how many people they're going to send in the capsule, but whatever. It's really tough to fake things nowadays because of the internet. So sorry, that's my little rant. And you guys coming from a conspiracy world, how. You guys spend your days dissecting conspiracies. Imagine that, but on a mass media scale, right? Every movie that comes out is gone through frame by frame by nerds in their underwear in Nebraska at 3 a.m. Right, just looking through just to make sure. People. I'll give you one. I know I rambled, but let me get this one thing out, which is. The Lord of the Rings, the original, right? The first one, The Fellowship of the Ring. A lot of people don't know this, but when it first came out, when it was rolled out into theaters back in the late 90s, when they were leaving the Shire, there was a car driving off, a white car driving off in the distance.
Oh shit!
everybody missed it because they were staring at the damn hobbits. And then all of a sudden, somebody's watching it in the theater going, hey, that car shouldn't be there.
They were simultaneously filming a Mazda commercial.
Yeah, but it was just wild. But the point is that it doesn't matter how much money you spend on a production, it's the weakest link which will break everything. And you guys have seen this with different conspiracies, some we won't name, where all it takes is one little thing. It's all links in a chain. If one chain breaks, the rest of it is vulnerable. So sorry. Anyway, I ramble.
No, you're
all
good. This is what you're here for.
A lot of great content, a lot of great information that I didn't know.
I got a lot of it. But yeah, what else you got?
I'd like to just touch on one of the first things that you said in that rant, as you would call it, rant. But you said you've been doing this for 7 years. Is that when you started believing in flat Earth, or how long have you been a believer?
Oh, but 7 years, and
Okay.
the documentary, which you guys probably didn't watch it.
Is it Under the Dome?
Behind the Curve.
Behind the Curve. Thank you.
I watched the other one.
The Behind the Curve, which was a Netflix thing. I mean, they didn't produce it. It was shot by an LA film team, and Netflix bought it later. In fact, I think it's on Amazon now. Netflix, it ran for 3 years. But anyway, I got into it in 2014 because, kind of like you guys, only I'm older. I ran out of conspiracies to look at. I never got married or had kids, and so I had a lot of free time on my hands, huge amounts of free time. And the internet was just starting to ramp up when I was in my 30s, and so early 30s. And so, I got a good jump on what was going on and went down the early rabbit holes, and to where finally around 2014, I was out of ideas as far as conspiracies go. I had looked at just about everything you could think of. And like you guys, some I liked, some I didn't, but I had an opinion on all of them. And there was one that I just didn't want to look at because why in the hell would you look at it? It's just the most stupid thing ever, which was flat Earth. And I decided, it's like, I'm not getting any younger. Might as well tick this thing off my bucket list. And it was the worst mistake ever. And
or the best.
The what? Or the best, yeah.
Or the best one. I mean,
well, I mean, it took me places I never ever thought I would go. But it was supposed to be a weekend project for me. It's like, oh, I'll spend a weekend, blow this thing out of the water, and then I can get back to playing video games. And that weekend turned into 9 months of just going through all these different threads and tugging on things and so many loose ends, to where at the beginning of 2015, I decided, okay, I'm just going to make a series of videos and put them out on the internet and put all my contact information out there, which, was really, really great idea. And, my phone number, my physical address, my real name, and the whole 9 yards, and say, okay, I can't prove the globe in a court of law anymore. Tell me where I went wrong. And instead of academics contacting me saying, okay, here's where you screwed up. Yeah, I forgot to carry the 2 here, and you can, close down your YouTube channel and get back to your life. All these other people started contacting me, branches in the military and pilots and missile instructors and air traffic controllers and you name it. All these weird people tied to travel started contacting me, and some were anonymous and a lot weren't. And they said, okay, you're not nuts. Here's why. And they would give me all these little tidbits in addition to what I already posted. And to where by the end of 2015, this thing started to really get some traction. And next thing you know, we were doing a conference. Our first conference was in 2017 down in Raleigh, and it was a national conference, and people flew in from all over the place, and it was just absolutely wild. We couldn't even do anything, and we just kept getting bigger and bigger, to where in 2019 we could do nothing wrong, and then 2020, the pandemic happened, and all the borders shut down, and that pretty much stunted us for 2 years and change. So there you go. Oh, so anyway, for your listeners though, real quick, but because some people's like, what is the whole flat Earth thing? You're not living on a tiny little rock covered with a little bit of water and a little bit of air flying through an impossible universe. You are living in a building with walls and a floor and a ceiling that it could look anywhere from a snow globe to a big aircraft hangar, for all we know.
Is it possibly like the Newman Show?
The Truman Show?
Newman Show. Newman.
Newman
I'm
Show.
I'm sorry. I've been on a Seinfeld kick.
Yeah, I was about to say, is that a Mandela effect? It's like, is it really called the Newman Show now?
It might be where I'm from, I guess. I don't know.
The Newman Show. That's awesome. Yeah, very much like the Truman Show. And and it was so big and so well designed that even our best and brightest didn't figure it out until 1960. And when they did, they just decided to not tell anybody, because why would you? Back in 1960, and I don't know if they're ever gonna, just come out and say it, but they've been doing their best to keep the space program alive, at least in the consciousness of Americans in the world, which I always find fascinating. Real quick, do I believe in the American space program? No, I don't. What I think is interesting, though, is when Americans I talk to, I get it. It's like, wave the flag. Why do you believe the Americans went to the moon? It's like, well, because of patriotism. There was a commentator on Fox News, and she literally said, she goes, I believe in the moon landings because I'm a patriot. It's like, wow. It's like, translation, you're not a good American unless you believe everything the government tells you. And but when I go outside of this country, I ask them, I go, why do you think the Americans went to the moon, right? They all say the exact same thing. They say, well, because it was on television. So I go, and it's like, well, your news channels would never lie. It's like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I believe nowadays more than ever that people believe, like, news channels are lying to them because they're in factions. So, I guess they get blinded by their factions. So,
yeah. And that's a good argument to throw at people. In fact, I've thrown it at people for the last couple of years. People say, oh, the news doesn't lie. Okay, I've really resolved these two sentences. Ready? Everything on CNN is absolutely true. And everything on Fox News is absolutely true. You can't resolve both of them. So it's got to be one or the other, because I've talked to people. It's like, no, CNN lies through their teeth. It's like, oh, Fox News is a bunch of freaking liars. It's like, yeah, I know. And so you do believe that the news can lie, but only because you're either red team or you're blue team.
Yeah.
Tribalism at its finest. Back to that argument, the patriotism thing, that's just hilarious. Because if they would actually pay attention to the history that they're saying, Russia was there first.
Well, Russia, that's a whole nother thing, by the way.
Not the moon, but like, if they're going off the history that they believe, then, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. So, by the way, don't forget, I mean, this predates you guys. You guys sound pretty young, but, there was a thing called the space race. Back in the 60s, where it was it was astronauts and cosmonauts, the Russian version of astronauts. Why they call them cosmonauts, I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. Where, there was this big race where we were going to, Russia was way ahead of us, supposedly. Yeah, they had done all these things, and all of a sudden we just went to the moon and back 6 times. Boom, 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 boom. Not a single problem happened except for Apollo 13, which is a whole nother thing. And when we went to the moon the first time, the Russians just quit. I'm sorry, the Soviet Union back then. Soviet Union just quit. It's the first time I've ever seen that in the history of sports. It's like a first guy crosses the finish line. The other people are like, no point even running.
Just they're poor sports.
Yeah, it was just, and that was it. The narrative should have been. We all know what the narrative was supposed to be. We put the 3 people on the moon. They put 5. We put 7. They put 9. Small base, big base. Next thing you know, Time Magazine runs a story which says, has the Cold War reached the moon? That's how the story was supposed to go. But it was the exact opposite. The Americans went, and then the Americans quit in 1972, and nobody else went. No, I mean, there's like supposedly five countries with launch capability. Nobody bothered to send a single, or even attempt a single person after that. It's just staggering. Absolutely freaking staggering.
It all stopped when it's like, extra, read all about it. America puts the first hotel on the moon. Nobody wants to
yeah.
go there.
Well, now everybody's going to Mars. Now everybody's going to Mars.
Oh,
Fuck the
yeah,
moon.
yeah. That
Close.
Mars
Too
thing.
close.
That's going to happen. Yeah, sure.
I got to take a step back though, really quick though. So, in the idea of the flat earther, is there actually a moon or Mars or like other planets?
Nope.
No, there's not.
Yeah,
Okay.
No, anything that's up in the sky is you might as well be in a planetarium. And I know that dates me. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to a planetarium. It used to be.
I've been to one.
I've been to one.
During weekdays they would show things to school kids. Like, oh look, here's the stars, and then on weekends they do like laser Floyd. And people just get baked and watch laser Floyd.
I've taken some really good naps at the planetarium before.
There you go. It's a perfect place to take a nap. The chairs go completely horizontal. It's a dark room. It's very peaceful.
A great place to drop acid.
There you go. So if you're there, right? If you're in a planetarium and you see the moon, right? The moon looks very spherical, depending on what sort of software they're using. And it's like, wow, it looks spherical. It's like, yeah, can you land on it? No, why not? Well, because it's just a light on the ceiling. Well, who's to say when you walk out of that building, you're just not in a much, much bigger building that had nothing to do with us. By the way, we didn't build this place. Not anywhere close. I'm going to steal a line from Contact with Jodie Foster. One of the great humble lines where she meets the alien that looks like her father, because that's what they do. And she goes, did you build this? This transit system? Because we didn't build it. We don't know who did. It was here when we got here. And it was like, which was
another door.
Goes against power structures, which is power usually takes credit if no one else is willing to take credit. It's like, what, they could have just as easily said, oh yeah, we built it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, nope. Compared that to like the pyramids, where whoever found the pyramids, the Egyptians, they didn't build them. They just found them and said, oh yeah, and looked around, no one's around. It's like, yeah, so we're gonna take these. All we have to do is say we built them, and they will raise us to demigod level, and they did. It was perfect. They didn't even have to explain how they built it. Just said, nope, we built it. Took us 30 years. Any construction techniques? Nope. Anyway, sorry.
No,
you're good. I was curious. You like to mention that like we're not on some strange disc that's like hurling through the cosmos, that we're like kind of in a building. So there's like there's something of like a stable firmament framework, right?
Think of this. When you think of space, the only reason you're thinking of space is because of all the media you have absorbed over the years. Everything from educational films to, more likely, all the science fiction stuff you've watched.
I mean, you can kind of see it.
The what?
I said you can kind of see space, like looking up.
Well,
or with a telescope. Like I've used like a homemade telescope, and that's a pretty old invention too, with the compound lenses. But
if you're looking at a planetarium ceiling, this is different from a planetarium ceiling that's only 100 feet above you. If you're looking at a planetarium ceiling that's, say, 500 miles above you, constructed by an engineering team that's octaves above us, then really what are you looking at? I mean, think about this. Think if you showed somebody, and you remember, well, again, you're young. If you showed an HD television to somebody back in the 70s, it would freak them out. I remember, growing up with cheap early televisions, and when the HD stuff came out, it's like, what is this?
We used to have to put in speaker wires in the back of our TV just to get Fox to come in when we were kids.
You remember how amazing N64 used to look? It was like, damn, these graphics are fucking banging. Now you go back and like Mario's whole face is just fucked up. It's not even like a polygon.
They could not get a nose better than a half of a fucking triangular sandwich.
Yeah.
By the way, I am a lifelong gamer, and that's why when Minecraft came out and just took off, I'm staring at kids watching. I'm watching this. I'm going, why are you so excited about this? I go, this is literally the most blocky game ever created. I mean, even Atari wouldn't make blocks this big.
Yeah, it is crazy. My kid is only 4 years old, and she knows who Minecraft Steve is, but never has touched Minecraft. So it's like, why are you excited about something you've never seen played? And look how blocky that is. If I was a kid and seen that, I was like, what's this crap? Where's Cat Dog?
Yeah. I mean, people. I point out like that PewDiePie was his rise to fame was he was one of the early people that posted him commentating on Minecraft videos of his own, his own little Minecraft videos, and they were terrible. I mean, there's this one. It was like he got a Minecraft zombie stuck in a tree. And he's laughing for like 10 minutes straight, and I'm watching all these kids that they thought it was the most hilarious thing ever.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that guy.
No, I'm not either.
Video game commentary videos. I'm not a fan of.
You want to have fun? Watch this. Go into I know you guys got a browser up there somewhere. Go into YouTube and type in PewDiePie Flat Earth.
PewDiePie.
Watch this. See the thumbnail with the creepy looking Shrek guy with the baseball cap?
Is this the one that says wait. Yeah, people actually believe the earth is flat?
Was that what he called it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that where there's a man and the woman in the thumbnail?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
That's me.
Looks like it. That is you.
Yeah.
I had your Wikipedia page up earlier. Just scrolling through it before my wife.
By the way,
I didn't even talking to you.
I didn't even know I had a wiki page until like 4 or 5 months ago.
Oh yeah, I typed in your name before. My wife was like, why you creeping on somebody? It's like, we're doing a podcast with this guy, and I'd like to know a bit about what they say about
yeah. I don't know who wrote it, and in fact I still haven't read the whole thing because I just don't like looking at my own stuff.
That must be surreal to actually know that you have a Wikipedia page about you.
I mean, I guess it's something. Let's put it this way: Flat Earth has given me opportunities without really any effort on my part. I told people that if I live long enough to write an autobiography, it will be called Unsolicited, because I never had to pick up the phone. People just started calling me. I mean, granted, I put my number out there, but it was a lot of it was because media is just lazy. If they're looking to interview somebody, I mean, you get an intern or whatever, one of your junior producers, and you say, find someone to interview about Flat Earth. If they can't find somebody in the first 10 minutes, they get really frustrated. And it's like, they can always find me. I think you can Google just Mark Sargent's phone number. It'll pop up.
Oh, wow. Is that what you did, Casey?
No, I emailed him.
Okay.
Yeah, but you got the email from what, YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube. I'm pretty sure your number's on YouTube too.
Oh yeah, it is. It is. I deliberately put it out there. So that and again, my phone, I knew people, my phone's sitting right here next to me, does not blow up. Because trolls don't like spoofing phone numbers. And so they'll only troll me in the comment sections. They will not email me directly, they won't call me. It's so weird.
That's a very coward move on people's part.
Yeah, it's trolls though. That's what they. Plus, again, you're not hating me. You're hating the what is it? Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah.
You don't hate me. You hate the idea of flat Earth, and so even if you could come at me and blow up my house, and what's that going to do? It's not going to stop flat Earth. So.
Is it like often that you get people just coming at you about this topic? Like just being
you mean in
like
a
somewhat like rude, not being open-minded, just being an ass,
No, hardly at all. I mean, in the comment section, yes, but I don't read the comment sections for the most part. I tell people, if you care about your self-esteem, if you're in social media and you care about your self-esteem at all, do not read the comment section.
Yeah,
because it is. I mean, it is. I remember when the first forums came out 20-something years ago. And you could tell because there's no internet registration system. You can be anonymous, right? Mm-hmm. And you could almost hear young men cracking their knuckles, warming up for this, it's like, wait, I can say anything I want and there's no repercussions at all. And it's like, no, there's not. And it's like, oh, I've got a painful childhood and I'm just going to let it all out on these people. You could make, seriously, you go into YouTube, you could make a video of kittens and puppies playing in a children's cancer ward, all right? And within 100 likes, thumbs up, you're going to have, it almost never goes 100 to 0. You're going to have some guy just come in there just because it's 0 and say, yeah, you know what? Screw you. Screw this video. Screw your religion, your sexuality. I hate you and everything about you just because I can.
Yeah, it's what the internet tends to just.
Oh yeah, it's awful. I've only gotten one death threat. One.
Oh, wow.
And well, yeah, but that was
They
not.
threatened to throw you off the edge.
No. That's funny. No, they threatened to the guy threatened to stab me with a 24-centimeter knife.
That's
Now-
way too specific to be comfortable.
Exactly, and it's like, well, plus it also gives it away. It's like, okay, he's either Canadian or he's from Europe, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
we don't do that
Centimeters. Yeah, you're right. We don't give a shit about
Yeah, centimeter shit doesn't work here. So I had to do
Outsized blade.
so I had to convert it. So I wrote him back, and I thought it was hilarious enough because it's like, well, you're obviously so far away, you're never going to get within knife range of me. So I read this on air during a couple podcasts, and he actually listened, and he writes back, and he goes, "Death threat apology." And that was the title of the email. I go, well, as long as you're being public about it. He goes, I'm sorry. He goes, I was hitting the glass when I wrote that. And I go, and I don't know much about drugs.
Oh fuck! I know.
And I thought it was crack, right? And I go, so I read this on the air, and I go, well, he had an excuse. He was on crack. And then he writes back again the next week, and he calls death threat apology with corrections.
Honestly, I thought you were about to say death threat apology rescinded, and I was like,
Oh god, dude, I love that. I love that.
And he goes, hitting the glass is meth. He goes, I was on a 6-day meth bender when I wrote that. I didn't watch any of Breaking Bad until this year, so I didn't know anything about meth. Now I know everything about meth.
Oh, dude, if you want to know more about meth, you should come to our hometown.
oh god.
Don't you throw that name out there. That place doesn't need that kind of publicity, you piece of shit.
Anyway, sorry, we're off track a bit.
Yeah, so I had a question. Did he say what he didn't? It was just kind of a random message, or was
He was literally high on meth and just decided to throw that out at me.
Well,
It's
to be
like-
fair, somebody
Where
on,
it's like if you don't stop this, I'm going to stab you with a 24-centimeter knife. And then when he calmed down, when he came off, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. It's like, okay.
Just kidding.
after a long hibernation, he woke up, came to, and he was just like, you know what? I don't even own a knife that big. I apologize.
It's going to take me so long to find a knife with the proper dimensions to carry out this murder.
And I may be a meth head, but I'm not a liar.
He probably pawned the knife for more meth. I don't know.
Who knows?
But yeah, no, that, I mean, but imagine that though, 7 years, and that was the only real hostility I ever got. And I did meetups in, oh God, I don't even know how many countries, and went everywhere and talked to people, and we did hundreds of regional meetups. I didn't go to all those, but never once was anyone really mean to me, or really out of their way. Again, why would you come at me? You're not mad at me. You're mad at the whole concept if you're going to be mad at anything. So no, it's actually worked out pretty well, which is why our retention rate is so high. I mean, when you get into this, we have a 99% retention rate. It's a red pill, blue pill thing where once you're in because you were the one that tore down the model yourself. I'm not going to convince you. I'm not going to persuade you. I'm just going to say, oh yeah, by the way, here's what I think it is. Do your own research. And if you do, you're the one that breaks the globe. So when you break it, kind of like the Matrix, how would you put it back together? And you can't. So you're kind of got to live with it at that point. It's kind of like a marble in a paint can. You gotta deal with it.
So speaking of Matrix, because I keep getting this this whole simulation type vibe. I'm a little confused on like. So let's say, could you possibly, if you don't believe in like space, everything's like a projection.
Yeah.
Can you break out through the projection? Like what's out there?
Well, then it goes. There's two different ways you could look at this. And by the way, I am a big Matrix believer. I am a total the whole virtual system thing. Yeah.
This whole place, I love every movie about that.
Yeah, we did an episode on that actually. Too.
Oh yeah, this place screams virtual. I mean, I said, look, if it's flat and it's enclosed, it's probably digital. Because why wouldn't it be? Because the techniques we used. Because I was a video game producer for a number of years. Oh wow. Yeah. I started out playing video games for a living back in the day. I was one of the early people that was hired, not like all those people that, do those weird tournaments, those team things. I was actually hired to play video games, like sit in an office and actually work for a living. And but all the games we've been building since day one, the 3D games anyway, are built with a flat model in mind. It's completely flat. It doesn't matter whether it's Minecraft or it's GTA or Warcraft or any of that stuff.
Yeah, they drop it on like a grid plane, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's hills and valleys and stuff like that, but the edges line up on both sides. In fact, the sky, there's something we use something called the skybox system, which is everything. Computers are funny. We create spheres and stuff, and we make things look curved, but computers can't draw true curves. A computer can't draw a globe. It can only draw a pixelated version of it, but it makes the pixels so small you'd never be able to detect it. That's why, like your television, all the pixels are squares, right? They're never circles.
Is that what kind of helped you like transition into believing?
Yeah. But the average person does not get. You guys get it. I mean, the average person they watched The Matrix, which is now 22 years old or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And then like The 13th Floor, which is even a better movie in my opinion because of the concept involved, which was because that was based on a German movie from the 70s called World on a Wire. Imagine the Germans trying to make a virtual movie, a Matrix movie in the 70s. How do you even? The public has no concept of that. And then and that was based on a 60s book called Simulacron 3, I believe, which was, again, science fiction people, even before the computers were in your average households. They understood. It's like, oh, yeah, if you can imagine it, it's probably already happened. However, the average person doesn't understand the Matrix, so I had to boil it down to the bare bones, which was, okay, well, it starts out with being flat. That's it. I mean, and then put a dome over it, and then maybe if you're comfortable with that, eventually start thinking that it's virtual. Look up things like the original double slit experiment, or the neuroscience versus free will experiment. They all point towards the same thing. The double slit experiment, by the way, the boiled down version of that is something you've heard in school, which was if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? Right?
Yeah.
Well, now we know, as we're building simulations, it's like, no, of course not. There is no tree. The tree's not there unless you're there to see it. We don't even render the tree until you show up, because what's the point? In fact, when you're, there's something out there called flashlight graphics, which is when you're looking, any game you play, whenever you're looking in front of you in like a cone pattern in front of you, that is rendered absolutely perfectly, as well as it's going to. But everything behind you is just blobs. It's just pixelated. Why? Because why would we render it behind you? You're not looking behind you. Yeah, but if you spin around, well, if you spin around, yeah, sure, we render that. But to save resources, we only render the stuff in front of you.
That is okay. It's interesting, like talking about this too, because it seems like a lot of theories like put together, like rather than just like the physics or the dimensions of the Earth itself. It seems like there's a lot of other things that are sort of put together. I don't really want to use the word conflated, but like things that are put together that create like the entire flat Earth understanding. And That's pretty interesting. I hadn't really considered that perspective before. That there was like so much more to it other than just the actual shape of the Earth. Which it's honestly even harder to get into the idea with there being this much more on top of it.
Yeah, well, which is why most of the community does not really even delve into the virtual side. They really go after, instead of saying.
So that's small. That's like factional then within Flat Earth.
Oh yeah. With
Okay.
most of the Flat Earth community spends its time tearing down the globe. So they don't even go into like, okay, this world could be a virtual construct and start going into the matrix aspects of that. Instead, they will say, okay, here's what mainstream science says is our world. This globe flying through space, the residue of the Big Bang Theory, and NASA. And I mean, we've got entire battalions of people that all they do is tear apart NASA on a regular basis, and which is actually a good place to go off, because nobody goes into Flat Earth loving it right away. Everybody hates it, including me. Everybody goes in, it's like reluctantly. It's like, oh, I really don't want to look at this.
Do you wish it was round?
I used to. Not only did my walls were they covered with world maps, I used to collect antique globes. The globe icon was absolutely burned into my brain.
They're cool looking. I like globes.
Yeah, to be honest, you
Sorry, go
start.
ahead.
Oh yeah, you start. Yeah, like you were saying, you start out seeing a spinning little globe, and as a kid, you're like, "That's the coolest thing in the world." And I remember as a kid, multiple times spinning a globe and sticking my finger on it, to see where it lands. So
Yeah.
I mean, I can get where you're coming from with that aspect, like that.
Subliminal messaging at its
Yeah.
finest.
Oh, dude, you wait. If you spend any time, the next time you watch a television show, see if you can make yourself aware of it. Every show, really since the Apollo program, ever since the late 60s, early 70s, you wait. You will find if it's not a space related show, you will find a globe in frame in regular parts of the show, especially television shows. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. I get it. There's a globe in a classroom if it's a show where it's a classroom, right? But why is there a globe on top of that detective's office in Chicago? What, on the top of that filing cabinet? Why is there a globe in that doctor's office? Why is there a globe?
Keep reminding you.
Well, yeah, and you don't even pay attention to it. But if you're in our community, because you're seeing these two people talking, in the frame, and you can see the globe behind them, and it's like, oh my God, it's perfect. That's what because you want to remind people when they're not in school. You want to remind them. It's like globe, because you're in space, and it's a subtle reinforcement technique, and it's brilliant. But I'm hyper aware of it. Now, every show, I mean, I'm staring at it, waiting. It's like, yep, there it is, season 2, episode 3. It's now introduced, and sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you don't. It sounds like a weird conspiracy, but think about that. If you know anything about Hollywood, producers, you can walk into, and if you wanted to, you could walk into any Hollywood production office and say, hey, I would like to donate $20,000 to your TV show and or movie. And they look at you and they say, okay, what do you want for that? You want a on-screen credit? What do you want? It's like, no, I want to help set design this room right here, this one little room. And they'd be like, okay, we'll take your money, and they will. And then so you work with a set design person, and you make a couple things, and I can't imagine anyone ever objecting to putting a globe. Then they might say, well, can you make it a different color, make it smaller, or put it off here. But they'll take your money, and if it works, if the show's if the show's a bust, well, then you only got one season out of it. But if it runs for 7-8 seasons, that's the best $20,000 you could have spent, because once it's in there, it's permanently part of that set. So it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I got it.
Through the oh, sorry, did you have a question, Matt?
Joe, but
oh fuck.
Again, if you didn't know, the other guy that's supposed to be here is my brother, and he's not on.
I meant
here.
to say
We
Mike,
make up
actually.
all the time. Oh, Mike. Okay.
I was gonna point out just like something that you wouldn't expect a globe to be in. The opening credits of Game of Thrones.
Right.
Starts out with a globe, right? It's with the sun around it and stuff.
Well, their world is round.
Yeah.
It's fantasy.
Well, that's just it. When I was a big Warcraft fan, and for the first 4 or 5 years, it was always just this flat map, right? And then I noticed, I'm not kidding you, in some of the smaller rooms, they had these globes. These virtual globes that were spinning where they had taken the Warcraft map and wrapped it around. Some little globe. It's like, wow, I get it. Again, it's a subtle reinforcement. But think about this. Every story, every space story you run into, whether it be, oh, look, here's another near-Earth asteroid every month, it seems, or every other month. Something funny on Mars. There's something weird on the top of Saturn. Oh, Jupiter's spot looks funny. We're going to reclassify Pluto, and goes on and on. They don't even care if you read the article. All they want you to do is glance at the headline, because if you glance on the headline, it's like, oh, right, Jupiter, because you're on a globe. Saturn, because you're on a globe. So on and so on and so on. It's just reinforcing space, because they don't know what to do with the Apollo program. Mars, that's never going to happen. And Elon, don't even get me started on him. I could spend an entire hour just on that guy. That roadster in space was ridiculous. Utter ridiculous. Thing should have broken up into a million pieces. The elements should have shattered everything in that car. And it was pristine.
You can't break one of those cars. You remember how he couldn't even break the window when he hit it with a bat?
Right.
You saw that, right? Where he broke his own window?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Elon is Elon's a corporate tool. I don't know at what point they decided to try to turn him into Tony Stark. But they did. I mean, and I get it. Yeah, he had a cameo
part. The suit, dude. If he gets the suit, it's like, what else can we do, man? There's no hope for us.
Well, he had a cameo in Iron Man 2. Mm-hmm. Just brief when they were on the French Riviera. But
right before the race.
But no, he's just I dedicated an entire chapter to him in my book, and it was like, it just drives me insane. Mostly because when he came out and he said back in 2017, he said, I'm going to send 2 tourists around the moon in 2018. He just throws out these absurd comments. It's like, what are you talking about? You don't have a rocket. You don't have a capsule. You don't have a crew. And you're just going to throw that out there? You say, oh yeah, we're going to send people around the moon. Never happened. Never even started. But that's what put him on my radar. I was like, ugh.
So you said earlier that you were a collector of antique globes. And then earlier on, you were saying like how learning about this is the equivalent of learning that you're adopted, like when you're 30 years old, like an existential crisis. Did that happen to you?
Yeah, it did. When
you were adopted?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I called up my parents and were screaming on the phone. No. What happened was after 9 months, I had this weird moment. It was really a Jerry Maguire moment, if you remember the Tom Cruise movie, where I woke up in the middle of the night and I realized that the scales had tipped. And it's like, you know what? I think it's actually easier to try to prove the flat side of things, that we're living in some sort of snow globe. And I woke up literally at 3:30 in the morning, got on my computer and started typing, some of the clearest writing I've ever done, where, I paragraph after paragraph. I remember taking a shower before I even got on my computer, and I could hear the narrative in my head in my own voice, where it's like, oh yeah, this is how I'm going to start it, and this is when I'm going to go on. And I sat down, and after I typed it was kind of like Forrest Gump. After I typed it, it's like, well, might as well narrate it, because I grabbed a cheap mic and I narrated it. And it's like, well, might as well turn it into a video with some slideshows, even though I knew nothing about video editing, and put it together. And that was the first clue. And then I made another one the next day, then I did the first 6 clues in 7 days. And it was this weird purging. And when I was done, I was kind of like holding my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because I was like, oh man, I'm just going to get roasted for this. People are just going to rip me to shreds. And they didn't. And in fact, again, the opposite, to where now, the trolls are almost non-existent. There's some dedicated troll channels out there, but that happens with just about every topic.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, it's like atheist.
Is there?
to religion. You hate a religion so bad it almost becomes a religion. So
Right.
You hate a conspiracy so bad that you create a conspiracy yourself. I don't
Right,
know.
right.
Kinda, yeah.
Is there anything on the bottom of the flat Earth? Is there anything underneath us?
That's a good question because the
Also,
what-
can I add, like, what would the depth be like? Like, you
well,
know,
the it's pretty much the same. The answer is the
Okay.
answer to that is the answer to both questions, which is the deepest hole ever drilled. You would wonder about this, right? Because we've all seen the cross sections of the globe over the years. You know, with the perfect 1,000-mile thick red and orange and yellow and white bands. You know, going all the way 4,000 miles down, right to the center of the Earth. The deepest hole ever drilled, what do we think it'd be? Half that, 2,000 miles, 1,000 miles, 100 miles, 10?
2?
No, it's not even 8 miles.
Crust
But
is-
you're one of the first people that said 2 miles. No, anybody can dig 2 miles.
Crust is
But
not supposed
no
to be
one can go
very
past
thick.
8 miles. It can,
Oh, wow.
it's never been done. The Germans and the Russians tried for years and years trying to get past it, and they couldn't. So how deep is it? I don't know. Tell me. I mean, we can't punch down past it, which made me look up, the wiki entry. It's like, okay, what does the core of the Earth look like? And if you read the wiki fine print, the scientists say, oh yeah, we have no idea what's going on down there. We're just extrapolating from volcanoes. It's like, then why don't you say that somewhere? At some point, when you have the cross section of the Earth, you took out that disclaimer. And so people just said, oh, well, obviously scientists have figured it out. People in lab coats are more intelligent than us, so they must be right. So we have no idea what's down there because science doesn't have any idea.
Fucking lava, man. Fucking lava. Why is there lava down there?
That's also a good question. I think it's
Interesting.
part
Like,
of the.
so seismic activity is definitely an interesting thing too, because like being in a flat plane. Do you have anything to say maybe about like earthquakes and formation of mountains and things like that? That would occur because of seismic activity.
Part of the process. Tectonic plates wouldn't really work much differently on a flat model than it would on a globe. As a matter of fact, if everything's artificial, then everything's there for a reason. And with your earlier thing, lava, that's actually a wonderful way to stop people from going down. I mean, yeah, nobody owns flying cars, but everybody owns shovels. And if you told people that, hey, if you dig far enough down, you might find treasure or something weird, people would be digging a lot. So you put lava and whatever it is, 8 miles down, and no one
The
goes
first
past.
barrier is stone. The second barrier is water. The third barrier is magma.
Or like the Antarctic, which I love, which is the Antarctic is a
And they threw in
fantastic
a bunch of
natural.
fossils to distract you.
Yes.
As you're making
There you go.
descent.
All sorts of fun stuff. The engineering of this place is very well done in terms of subtle negative reinforcements, meaning you turn back. But it makes you think that when you turn back, it's because of a decision that you made. So like Antarctica, if you're heading out there, back in the day, right? Eventually the water gets cold enough, there's icebergs. That'll usually turn around most boats. But then when you get there, it's a Game of Thrones wall of ice, the shoreline, a couple 100 feet high around, and then it just goes up and up and up. The most the continent, even by mainstream, says it's like at 14,000 feet. There's no animal life. There's no plant life. I don't count the penguins. And eventually you don't want to go any further. It's like, screw this. I'm turning around. I'm not going any further. It doesn't take frost giants to turn you around and standing in front of a big sign that says go away. All it is just subtle negative reinforcements. It's really cold and it's really unpleasant. So
with that, so like the whole flat Earth thing with the sun, how does that work? Like,
right. Okay, so like a planetarium, the only thing different from a planetarium, the moon and the sun are very, very small, and they're very, very close by comparison. So the moon isn't 230, well, let's round up, 240,000 miles away, and the sun isn't 93 million miles away. They're both, and one isn't, by the way, I always think it's interesting. The moon fits perfectly in front of the sun because it's 400 times smaller and 400 times closer if you believe in mainstream science. But we say no, they're about the same size and less than 50 miles wide, and the sun is just basically an incandescent light bulb, spotlight that goes around, which is why you can get time zones, because it's so damn close that it's not shining on everything. And the moon is an LED nightlight, which is a whole nother thing, by the way. If you ever want to have some fun, look up the fact that the moon is generating a cold light. And I didn't come up with this. Someone just said, "Hey, dude, if you take like an infrared point and click thermometer, you buy it $20 now at the hardware store." He goes, "It's warmer in the moon shade than it is in the moonlight." And I go, "What?" I go, that doesn't even make sense. It's like, no, it does, because the moon is basically self-illuminated. It's generating its own cold light up to like 13 degrees Fahrenheit difference. And if you magnify moonlight, it even gets colder. And this is not secret technology. We can do this right now. You can go to Amazon and buy cold laser light health and beauty products all day long. The question is, why is the moon generating that? And if that's the case, does that prove, that we're living in a snow globe? No, but it completely destroys the relationship between the sun and the moon. Because remember, the moon's only lit up because of the sun, right? If the moon is reflecting at least a fraction of the sun's radiation, it should at least be in the positive. It should never be negative. So, I don't know, that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Well, I got
that's interesting.
There's guys with predator vision that have filmed wonderful videos. Guys who are not into flat Earth, with predator vision, going walking around their neighborhood during a full moonlit night.
I just picture Predator just
yeah in the suburbs, just walking around. Is this your cat?
Is this your cat?
Dude, yeah, that's interesting. Like, I don't know anything about like cold light or anything, but my understanding was that the reason that like thermal energy wouldn't be given off by the light coming from the moon is because it absorbs. I mean, it obviously has like a really high albedo because it's like pure white, if it is indeed a physical object. And when the sun's light hits it, it absorbs the thermal energy, like the long form radiation, and then would reflect only, things like probably even lesser than then what the fuck is it called? UV. Yeah.
Sure. But no, I'm right there with you.
Contain any heat energy.
I'm right there with you, but it shouldn't go negative. Not like that.
I'll have to look at that. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there's some wonderful videos out there on it where, friends of mine that, they went all out, with jeweler's arms and copper strips and water. It's like, this one's in the shade, this one's in the moonlight, this one's being magnified. And it's just fascinating stuff. Again, I have never run into a scientist that even would be willing to address it when I brought it up. It's like, what do you think of this? And they didn't even heard of it before. And it's like, all right. So
I can't. Wait to test that out. I really can't.
through your like journey of like studying these things, were you interested, or were you like studied in / interested in things such as like chemistry and physics, or did you end up like learning a lot more about those things as you were going through this process?
I was always a pretty good student. I really did enjoy chemistry when I was in university. In fact, I was thrown out for manufacturing explosives on campus. Whole other story for another time.
You gotta take chemistry. You gotta
tell us about that.
Not a Ted Kaczynski thing, but more of a Native American fireworks, place where they were always in search of product around here, and I was more than willing to help out. But you're absolutely right. In fact, it's not just me. Anybody that gets into this, we have to relearn science that we just took for granted. So some of that stuff I was throwing out. I mean, you could ask the average person on the street. It's like, how far is the moon away? How far is the sun away? How fast are we spinning? How fast is it going around the Earth or around the sun? How fast is the solar system flying sideways? I don't know the answers to all that stuff, but I had to relearn it. And the reason I had to relearn it because in order to go after the whole aspect of space, you have to know thy enemy. You have to know as much as you can before you can tear it down. And so, yeah, I know more. I've learned more science factoids in the last 7 years than all my schooling combined. And I'm sure I heard it at one point, was just zoned out, in school, wasn't paying any attention. But now I couldn't forget it if I tried.
Oh yeah,
school has really found the most efficient way to make learning suck.
High
For
school,
sure.
colleges seem to put a spin on it. I've had a couple of classes at community college that kind of made it more interesting with things. I had another question. So you had to relearn all these science things. What's your opinion on like global warming? Is there like a different thing when it comes to flat earthers? Do they believe the same like stuff?
Well, okay. I've got a different opinion than most in our.
Oh
community.
yeah, I guess global isn't the right word.
No. It's not that. People will say, "Does climate change work?" In fact, I've literally had this question thrown at me since year one, which is, how does climate change work in a flat Earth? Do you believe in it? Because a lot of conspiracy people, we'll call them truther community, a lot of people in the truth community do not believe in the climate change thing. They just don't buy it.
Yeah.
But for me, I buy it because it makes more sense in an enclosed system. Meaning, doesn't the whole term greenhouse gases make more sense if it's an act?
That's what I was gonna say. If you're actually literally in like a fucking greenhouse, like
exactly.
Yeah, that would make more sense. I was just curious about that. As soon as you start bringing up this,
I don't know if this is a theory too. I was just thinking of it just as he was talking too, not just greenhouse gases, but if this is simulated and is run like a computer, older stuff will heat up over time. It'll not run as efficiently or whatever. I don't know.
Sure. I mean, if this is an automated system, by the way, let's say it's virtual, but even in virtual systems, there's automated processes. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's some sort of triggers or thresholds involved to where, again, if you got, let's say 600, 800 million internal combustion engines running at a given point, basically they're just furnaces, it's going to have an effect on something. You can't tell me it's not going to, again, but only if it's an enclosed system. If it was just venting off into space, oh, sure, you'd be anything, no problem there. But then again, the venting off to space is a problem if you're on a globe. Because, let me throw this out real quick, because it's one of my favorite things, which is gravity versus the vacuum of space. So again, if you're sitting in a room right now and the second floor above you, you turn into a little vacuum chamber, right? If you have a valve, you pop that valve, what's going to happen? It's not like the movies, right? It's instant. It's violent. It's not like, you don't hear this. It's like, oh my God, we only have 2 minutes of air left. It is incredibly fast, right? Fraction of a second.
Yeah, it's instantaneous.
You see whatever, like when they quick release stuff that they put in a vacuum, whether it's marshmallows or whatever, experiments that you look at on YouTube, that shit will poof.
We did an interesting experiment too, where like we put a fly into a vacuum, sucked out the air immediately. Then you see the fly like flapping its wings. There's no air for it to carry itself, so the fly can't move.
You talking about junior high?
Yep. Yep. Same class as you, buddy.
Same class.
So the question is, when you did this, right? So the air went, left your room and went upstairs, right? You walk outside. Why is our atmosphere still here? Being that our atmosphere borders the biggest vacuum chamber of all time. And your initial reaction, your only reaction would be, well, because of gravity. And I go, you mean the same gravity that couldn't keep the air in your living room from going upstairs? That very same gravity? And again, I throw the question out to scientists. I go, what happens when our atmosphere ends and space begins? Tell me what happens there. Tell me what is this wispy relationship? No, that's not what a vacuum does. A vacuum does not give a shit. It will rip everything off. It will rip off the upper atmosphere, the clouds, the water. It takes it all. It will try to. So
that's pretty interesting. Yeah, because like I know for one thing there are things like H2O, like water vapor. Is like a polar molecule. So if it's around a bunch of other polar molecules that are in the air, which I mean, there are also noble gases, and there's like dinitrogen that are all in the atmosphere, and those are non-polar. Yeah. But like I know with the interaction of like polar molecules that they can hold each other together. So I imagine that there could be some sort of connection between like gravity pulling down like these massive concentrated molecules and then and them also exerting forces upon one another to remain in space. But it is an interesting point that you raise.
Well, again, we are conditioned to be, again, part of it. I don't think that's deliberate. I think that is just part of the science fiction process, which is Mark Twain's quote, which I love so much, which is never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Which is we sacrifice a lot in our storytelling. We will bypass. You've seen it. Some movies get away with it, some don't. So like the end of Aliens, for example, where Sigourney Weaver is venting space, right? You know, the big bay door and everything's flying past her, and she's crawling up the ladder against this. I'm going, she's dead, the girl's dead, the Marine's dead, the alien's dead. They're all dead instantly.
Yeah.
But because we've seen that so many times, it's just burned into our head. And you don't think, by the way, that there are accidents. You know, like when Stanley Kubrick made 2001: A Space Odyssey. He made that in 1968. Won a bunch of awards. It was a very expensive, very well done movie. And then in 1969, that's when we landed on the moon. Subconsciously, we already filled in the gaps with the movie. Everybody saw that freaking movie. It was brilliant. You could watch, if you put it on Blu-ray today, it's held up amazingly well. So, what else you got?
Well, earlier you were saying how you guys don't know who built the simulation or the whatever we're in. Are there theories?
Sure.
Like this borderlines on you know what a lot of people call religion, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's only two roads you can take there. One is, okay, who built this place, right? It's either an older civilization that's more powerful than ourselves, right? Or the divine. But really, then you're kind of splitting hairs because, you know, one man's golden spaceship is another man's deity. I mean, if a giant spaceship landed in the middle of Indiana right now, you would have two camps that would show up. One would be all the science nerds be like, oh, wow, they do look like the blue people from Avatar, right? And, you know, that's their thing. And but another group would be like, we must worship the blue people. You know, start building the church immediately. And that's just, I mean, what's the difference between the two? Yeah. Do I think that this place was built by capital G God, or did God subcontract out the work? I tend to go with the latter because, you know, when we're talking about the ultimate power, because I believe that whoever built this place would be just a fragment. Let's say small g versus capital G.
Yeah. When I said religion, I wasn't saying capital G God. I just meant like a higher power kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
not necessarily God, but something
God-like,
but not deity-ish. Like like you said earlier, the previous, you know, civilization that is you know, smarter and all that.
Oh yeah, and by the way, I also don't think that we're the first people. Not only do I think what's outside of here, is there more than one of these? Yeah, probably. Why would this be a one-off? But not only that, let's put another layer into it, which is we're not the first people to rent this apartment by any stretch, and you guys know that. I mean, come on, how many old civilization remnants are there? You know, sunken cities off of Japan, sunken cities off of India, Puma Punku, Machu Picchu, the Bosnian pyramids, the real pyramids, Bimini Road, blah blah. It just goes on and on and on. Because why would you be a one-off civilization? You know, after every civilization has its run, whatever, you know, we're running on like 5,000 years of unbroken history. Then, you know, you shake up the Etch-a-Sketch and you start over. You know, and whoever, you know, does that mean that part of this civilization gets to move on and do other things? Yeah, possibly. I don't know. But it certainly feels to me that all the things that are flying around up there, and I've seen them. I mean, grab night vision binoculars and watch them anytime you want. They're just older versions of us, but they seem to have rules. There seem to be protocols put in place. I won't go so far as to say like it's the prime directive protocols, but it kind of feels like that because, you know, that's one of the old arguments, which is Well, if there are spaceships flying around, why haven't they landed? Why haven't they come out and taken selfies and signed autographs? It's like, do you know what would happen?
Yeah.
That would change everything. You know, you can't, there are rules. You can't, it's seriously, let me throw this one more thing, which is the greatest UFO sighting of all time. Most people never even heard of it. It's not Roswell. It's not Aurora in 1899, Texas. It's 1561 Nuremberg, Germany. Look it up. It's a fantastic wiki page where these two huge factions just start duking it out over the town of Nuremberg, Germany on a beautiful spring morning for like an hour. And then a third faction shows up, breaks them up, and then all three leave. Which it's like, okay, so who are the first two? Who was the third group? Was that the cops? Was that the UN? And also throws in, it's like, what sort of response time is an hour? I could fire a gun out this window. There's going to be cops here in 5 minutes. These guys are doing a full out military conflict and nobody steps in for an hour. It's amazing.
That's
seriously, look up. And they drew it. By the way, they drew it in the newspapers. An hour is so much time. They actually sketched out the entire thing because there was no cameras back in 1561.
There probably was. No. How would everyone keep this a secret, like throughout the different countries and stuff?
Well, it's not like the Manhattan Project. You know, the Manhattan Project, where you have hundreds of thousands of people refining enriched radioactive material to try to make atomic weapons. This would be need to know. So, first off, again, the moves they made worked out for them. They sealed off Antarctica with the Antarctic Treaty in 1959. And then the same year, they announced the Van Allen radiation belts, and they formed NASA, which is basically militarized space. And then the rest, you don't have to tell anybody. I mean, remember, there's only 5 countries that supposedly have launch capabilities. Japan, China, Soviet Union, now Russia, America, and European Union. And at the highest levels, those people, the only people, you can have space agencies, let's put it that way. But the only people that need to know that a thing's going to be faked are, of course, the top brass and the telemetry guys. Which I recommend Capricorn 1, the late 70s independent film, so much, because that goes into not only how they faked a moon mission, but how they faked a Mars mission. And it was a fictional movie. It wasn't like a documentary or anything. They just showed it like a matter of fact. It's like, oh, by the way, we're going to fake a Mars mission. Here's why. And so most people don't have to know. I mean, 99.9% of NASA employees, they don't know anything. Even the astronauts nowadays. They don't even know anything. Just they're paid. You know, they're high-ranking officers in the United States Air Force, which is, you know, they know how to keep a secret, and plus they're under different rules than most people. When we break secrets, you know, we hurt people's feelings. We're not maybe not go to jail. If they do, you know, it's treason, which is a whole nother thing. You know, they lock you in a room and throw away the room. And so they take that very seriously. So there you go.
This question's probably out of nowhere, but we heard that like flat Earth people didn't believe in trees, like they were extinct. And then
no. That was the
I didn't know if that was an actual thing.
No. There was a video that came out. Wow, how far back was that? 2017. Called "No Forests on Flat Earth," which was one of our people. And I think he was just definitely Eastern Bloc because his accent was really, really thick. Was basically saying that lots of your mesas and mountains appeared to be just severed trees that were petrified. So if you can imagine, like Devil's Tower out in Wyoming, for example, you know, where they shot, you know, parts of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That movie, you know, imagine that does kind of look like a stump from a tree. Well, he was kind of going down that road, and it resonated with a lot of people because if you're into flat Earth, or you are open to just about everything afterwards. You're revisiting everything because, again, you're into flat Earth. What's crazy at that point? So again, people will come to me and say, I heard that Elvis is still alive and he's dating Bigfoot. 7-8 years ago, I'd be like, get the hell out of here. I don't want to talk about that. Now, I mean, like, all right, I'll give you a couple of minutes. What do you got? What leg do I have to stand on? I can't come back in him. That's why literally in the first paragraph of the first clue I wrote, I knew I was onto something because there were friends of mine that swore that the entire British royal family were made up of lizard people, right? But I would come at him and I would say,
probably are.
Well, maybe, but then I would come at these same people and I'd say, yeah, but what about flat Earth? They go, get the hell out of here. And I was going, wait a minute.
You're out of your mind, man.
I go, what? You were just showing me lizard people, and yet you're just going to tell me I'm crazy. Yeah. And that shows you that's when I kind of knew there was something else going on here. I mean, the fact that when I clicked on my very first Flat Earth video, I had this visceral response that I was embarrassed, right? I was in a closed room with the drapes pulled, and I clicked on this Flat Earth video, and I was flushed. And it's like, wait a minute. I have clicked on a lot of weird stuff on the internet over the years. Nothing is really... Yeah, nothing's embarrassed me. It'd be like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be here, but nothing has been, it'd be like shocked me. And I was going, why is this? And I started to realize, like, oh, right, because of the conditioning, because I've been told for so long that now all of a sudden you're going against that. You're going against your, all those years of just beating it into you. Well, I shouldn't say beating, just
programmed thinking.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Anything else?
I can't think of anything. Casey's been kind of quiet this entire time, which is surprising.
Yeah, you got another question over there, Casey?
Casey's usually the guy that talks the most.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions?
No.
Any questions submitted by our listeners? Yeah, go ahead.
Why
don't you read one of the questions submitted by our listeners?
The NASA, NASA guards. Are there NASA guards on the ice wall?
No,
that surrounds it.
No. NASA has nothing to do with it. Compartmentalizing over the last, since 1960, has been very, very good. So NASA does what NASA does. They wear white, they don't carry guns, they smile for the camera, and they say space is amazing, even though they are DOD the entire way. I love the fact that people say, well, the NASA isn't military. I go, what are you talking about? They're uniquely military. They were literally built on the still burning embers of the Nazi war machine. The V2 program. With Werner von Braun, we took half the scientists and the Soviet Union took the other half, right? So no, NASA has nothing to do with the Guardian of Antarctica. Antarctica is sealed off by layers and layers of red tape, known as the Antarctic Treaty. By the way, it's the only unbroken treaty in the history of treaties. Treaties were meant to be broken. That's one of the things we do. And this one, when it was signed in 1959, they said, yeah, we're not even going to review it until 2041. Can you imagine that? I mean, yeah, we're closer to 2041 now. Can you imagine that, saying that in 1960? It's like everyone that had anything to do with that would be dead, long dead. And it's like, why? And not only, here's the other thing about the Antarctic Treaty. Not only are you not, you're not going to be able to break it, you're not even allowed to talk about it. That's one of the things that got me. I mean, this world is run on money and greed and power, right? And and there's tons of natural resources down there. Our military announced it back in the 50s, and yet those same companies with huge amounts of liquid cash, the companies that could start fracking in your neighbor's backyard next week, right? They're not even allowed to talk about it. Not even, they should be running full page ads in different newspapers, and nope, there's a national security blanket that's thrown over this entire thing. Not just our nation, every nation. It's like British Petroleum. I am sure that the highest levels, somebody's been sent a memo and says, by the way, you don't go down to Antarctica. If you think about Antarctica, you just call this number. We'll talk you through what you're not going to do. And every economic power that comes online is told to sign the treaty, which is just amazing to me. It's okay, I guess, but because it's the least traveled destination in the world, it's out of sight, out of mind. Nobody questions it.
Who wants to go freeze their ass off,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And not only that, it's expensive. Like if you wanted to go down there to freeze your ass off, it costs you about 15 grand. And it's like, what are you getting for that? You're going to be in a raft, with orange, parkas, really thick stuff. You'll have your picture taken with some penguins on the coast. And that's it. You are not, you think, oh, hey, can't I just get a snowmobile and just start taking off? Nope. You cannot. You have to file huge amounts of permits. And again, Antarctica is the only country in the world which isn't owned by anyone. I mean, every square inch of real estate in this world is owned by somebody except Antarctica. And it's monstrous. How does that happen? So,
it is pretty wild.
You brought up the fracking thing. This is going to sound really stupid. But so let's say hypothetically you just kept drilling. What would you eventually meet? Like believing in flat Earth. But there's not a core to the Earth kind of thing?
We don't know. I mean, I can tell you that the drill bits just turn to slag when it reaches a certain level. I don't know if it's a pressure thing or it's a heat thing or both, but we don't know. If it was me, if I was, if you gave me unlimited funds and I had military technology, I wouldn't use a drill bit. I would do
grenades.
Yeah, close enough. I would do tactical nukes, and I would just start punching my way down because nukes will vaporize chunks of matter. So
everything.
But then again,
you just need the tech that they had in the movie The Core, where they just had that laser that just vaporizes the mountains.
I thank you, by the way, for bringing up that Thomas Jane movie. I rewatched that in fact, I think last year, and it is, it's hard to rewatch for me now because it's like, wow, the leaps that they had to make for that, and it was so far above the head of the average viewer anyway. So it's like, oh yeah, we stopped the core of the Earth, and it's like, do you know the scope of what you're talking about? If that was the case? And that they were going to restart it with nukes, right?
Yeah, that was
Jesus Christ. Yeah,
the most American thing you could probably do.
Yeah.
We'll blow it up more. That's what we do.
What is that? An on-off switch? Fucking nuke it.
And,
that'll turn it on.
The metal that was used to make the ship, I think it was the first time before Avatar. It was called unobtainium. And
this is a fucking geologist. He knows what he's talking about. We guys get a little bit of
unobtainium.
Yeah, unobtainium, a mineral which is basically indestructible and becomes even more indestructible under high heat and pressure. It's like, come on. It's like, you guys, but again, you had to, for the storyline, you had to write that into the plot. And it's like, all right. But yeah, that's a tough movie to watch now. Really, really tough. I'm fully fine with like Journey to the Center of the Earth, where there's subterranean civilizations. That's fine because you don't need much room to pull that off. But the whole actually going to the core, no.
We're just gonna call it a nougat middle, like a Snickers bar. We're just gonna call it that.
Did you ever meet Mike Hughes, the guy who launched himself up in that rocket?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was suing me before he died.
Oh really?
Yeah. He had this weird thing where he found a loophole in the California legal system to where he could apply for to use people's identities for things. And once he figured out this loophole, he was doing it for all sorts of people, and I was one of them. To where, I actually got a summons, and I remember it's fine now, because he's dead. But he, the San Bernardino Police Department, they had contacted me, and they said they were working on trying to build a case up against him, and they wanted to know if they could use me as a witness. And it's like, oh yeah, sure. But on a side story. That was the worst way ever. You would have thought San Bernardino Police Department. They sent me just this generic email, right? Saying, oh, we'd like to get a hold of you. We need your ID and some other stuff. And, I get so much spam. I write back these guys and I go, you guys are terrible. I get better emails from Nigerian princes. And, just go away, right? Get out of here. And then they write back, another email. It's like, no, we're absolutely serious, blah, blah, blah. I was going, okay. And they caught me in a funny mood. And I said, okay, here's the deal. I'm so glad you guys wrote me because I've got a lot to get off my chest. And I just listed off all these major crimes that I had committed. And at the end, I go, and you will never find all the bodies I have buried. And then turns out that they was actually real. They got a hold of a friend of mine, Patricia, from the documentary, and she goes, "Oh my God!" She goes, "They're real." And I go, "Yeah." I go, "Why the hell would they just email? Why would they just call me?" So stupid. At least they didn't. I didn't get in trouble for it, but it was kind of funny. But yeah, I did know Mike Hughes, and he, by the way, he was not into flat Earth. He was just really just trying to get his stunt thing. He was an aging stunt man. He was trying to fund that. And so we gave him, what was it, $7-8 to fund one of his rockets. And again, what do you get for that $8,000? It's like, well, put a big flat Earth sticker on the side, if you don't mind. And so we did, he put it on there. And that's when all the news people just latched onto him. In fact, he was supposed to be in the documentary, but the producers, really? Oh yeah. They were going to put him in, but the producers, smart move. They said, this all of a sudden occurred to him. It's like, what happens if he crashes and he dies? It's like the tone of this movie will completely change. I go, yeah, and so they decide, nope, we're not going to do it.
We're going to need a couple extra forms.
Well, I mean, I got what they were. Well, and a lot of people don't know that he had already signed a TV deal with the Science Channel, not Sci-Fi Network, but the Science Channel, a reality show, and they were like shooting season 1, episode 1 when he crashed. So kind of creepy. Mm-hmm. Not saying that Science Channel had anything to do with that, since they paid for the rocket that they had built, but weirder things have happened.
Huh. It's not
is there any websites that you can direct our listeners to check out the flat Earth and all that fun stuff?
The easiest way, I'm not even going to list websites. Just go into any search engine and type in Flat Earth Mark. That's it. And you will find that'll lead you into some direction, and you will organically find your way to the rabbit hole that you are seeking. The stuff that's out there, I've got some books on Amazon. There's the documentary that's out there, and some other fun stuff. But seriously, just type in Flat Earth Mark and see where it takes you. I don't know where it will take you. There's so many, like the wiki page that showed up. I didn't know who set that up. I wish I did, and they never contacted me. So,
yeah, there's
You're
definitely
secret admirer.
you can click on there that'll send you right down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a Matrix speaking thing.
Yeah. Again, there's plenty. There's a lot of content makers out there. What I don't recommend, don't go into YouTube and just type in Flat Earth, because you will get just about every major channel has done a Flat Earth video. Everything from.
Yeah, you said PewDiePie, and I looked at that. I did not expect that.
No.
I went on to YouTube and looked at it. I was like, oh shit.
But like all the every network, every television talk show, everybody's done a Flat Earth video at one point or another, and so the things can be lost in the shuffle. But there's a lot of good content out there if you know what to look for. So, but before I go, I must recommend to people, because I'm not kidding you when I say this. If you wake up every morning and your life is just about the way you want it to, thumbs up, everything is awesome, that whole song, and don't look at this, because there is a point where you go down. This isn't like other rabbit holes, where if you go down this rabbit hole to a certain degree, you can't come back from it. And when that happens, it can be a little jarring, because you again, the whole adoption thing, and you'll be freaking out for a while. You won't sleep, and you'll be staring at the screen going, oh, well, man. And if that happens, don't blame me. Some people have in the past.
He told you not to.
Yeah, I did. I
warned
warned you. I go again. It's sort of the Morpheus speech, which is I'm only offering you the truth, but you're the one that has to figure that out, and go down the rabbit hole yourself. But if you want to just do what you want to do, hey, great. Don't look at it. That's not reverse psychology, by the way. That is just a fair warning.
Go look at it.
Well,
I know
that's
it's like what? Yeah, I know you know how that's going to work, right? I always say, whatever you do, do not think about elephants, right?
Oh, yeah.
The second you do that,
I got a special defense strategy though, because like as soon as I hear elephants, I just think cheetahs.
What's like
That's how I beat them.
that new movie that came out, Terrifier 2. Everybody's like, people are puking and seizuring in the theater. Don't watch
that's why
it.
I
It's
wanna
like,
watch
we're
it.
gonna watch it now.
Yeah. I
was like,
find
wait,
out if
what a
I
minute.
can handle it.
Horror movie that's messing people
That's
up.
a
bad?
different
Okay,
thing though, because with this, they're actually I really doubt people are really doing that. Maybe the puking part. Nobody seizuring unless they have weird
They shit
epileptic-
themselves immediately.
a weird epileptic fucking light thing flashing.
well, yeah, you could do that with just. You don't even need a movie to do that.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously,
this
if-
is strictly an advertisement thing rather than what we're talking about here.
yeah, that's a little different. This
Yeah.
is again, this is just it's an idea that's out there, but it's for you to research and not, again, I don't want to convince you. I don't want to be held responsible for it. It's kind of like being like a flat earth drug deal, right? Drug dealer. Like I'm standing on the corner. It's like, yeah, man.
She's like, "Come on, man! I got the flapjacks you're asking for. Let's do this."
No. The kid walks up to you and he's like, "Man, you gotta hear that flat Earth." It's like, dude, you couldn't handle flat Earth. I'm not gonna give it to you. Come on, man.
I could give it to you. I could give it to you in doses, man. I'm not giving you the whole thing.
It's like if I give this to you, I don't want you coming back at me later and telling me why did you give it to me.
And then on it, you have your name and address and YouTube channel. I'm just playing. Well, we really appreciated you being on here, and as our first
it
guest,
was my pleasure.
it's an honor.
Yes, this
Yeah, I
was,
think our listeners are really going to enjoy this.
You're a very nice guy.
You've been a
and,
very pleasant guest too.
yes.
Well, thank you. And I am glad. I hope that whoever you have next, you don't schedule them 6 months out.
Oh yes, Casey.
We'll try to keep it a shorter time frame next time.
Oh my god! When you guys like, I'm your first guest. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna schedule you 6 months from now. It's like,
What's the going time frame?
What are you doing in half a year?
Give us industry knowledge.
What are you doing in half a year if they
a
don't put
couple
up
weeks
A
tops.
couple weeks. Okay.
A couple weeks because
makes sense.
anything after that people forget anyway. I mean, seriously, you book somebody like, I mean, unless it's like a huge show, like a Tonight Show or something like that.
We're definitely no Joe Rogan.
Oh, don't even bring that man up to me.
I'm not really a fan of Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. Well, no. Okay, let me leave you with this.
As you asked you on.
Joe Rogan was one of ours back in the day.
But we're going to
He
end
was
on Joe
wrong.
Rogan. Okay.
He was an anti-NASA guy who would debate against scientists and say there's no way we went to the moon. That was like one of his favorite quotes, right? And then all of a sudden he disappears for a while. And when he comes back, he has a brand new show on the Sci-Fi Channel called Joe Rogan Questions Everything. And the very first episode, he apologizes to NASA for everything he ever said about him. It's like, okay.
Oh man.
What carrot did you take?
Yeah. NASA dropped the fucking mousetrap on Joe.
Yeah. It's like, and then he becomes the most popular podcast in the world. It's like, okay, that's fine, I guess. Like, I mean, of all the people that have the most popular podcast in the world, it's like, that guy? Really? Joe Rogan?
The guy every 2 seconds, like, wow, hey Jamie, look up this.
You know, oddly, I think Eddie Bravo is also a flat earther, isn't he?
Oh yeah. He's the one that drives Joe insane. Because, he's
hilarious too. I love him.
Huge one of our guys, and Joe tortures him on a regular basis, and I think Joe wants to talk about it because it's polarizing, so he'll bring it up to guests every chance he gets. It's like, if he gets an opening, it's like, hey, what do you think about flat Earth? And seeing if their guest loses it, on camera. But I don't know. Eddie's absolutely one of our guys. In fact, he just did a conference speaking thing for ours. We did a thing just a couple days ago. He was on it.
Oh, nice.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of so 6 months. Mark, say what you will about Mr. Sargent, but he keeps a fucking date, okay?
If anything, you're very punctual, and you keep a tight calendar, sir.
I kept the date out of morbid curiosity more than anything. It's like I'm really curious to see. It's like 6 months, and then you just be like, oh yeah, here's the show. It's like, what? How? I've never
We start with we're very intoxicated conspiracy theorists. Nothing is really.
I've had podcasts with like less than an hour's notice, and it's like when you get somebody that email, it's like oh yeah, we booked you out at like November. It's like what? So anyway, thank you. No, thank you guys. It was a real pleasure.
No, it was our pleasure.
If you need anything else, feel free to shoot me emails, and I can direct her. If there's anybody else, by the way, in the community you want to talk to, be more than happy to introduce you.
We'll invite you to the Conspiracy Out Party reunion in 2024. So be ready. Okay, I'm giving you 2 years notice this time. Giving you 2 years notice this time.
Nice. Nice. Well, anyway, guys, thank you. And
Thank you.
By the way, I don't have a button. Do I have a button that actually disconnects me?
Cut him off, Casey. Cut him off.
I mean, there's no button that says leave.
I think
you just
usually
I just close the browser,
out of the
right?
browser.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Close the browser, it'll exit you out.
Okay. Anyway, thanks, guys. Send me the audio if you get a chance.
Oh
Yeah, I'll send it to you probably tomorrow morning.
Okay. Sounds good, guys.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for
Take care,
on.
Mark.
Yep.
Have a good night.
We brought him on here to talk about flat Earth, but it turns out that like the theories that Mark Sargent is into is actually like a big conflation of a whole bunch of other conspiracy theories. It's actually not just about the physics and existence of a flat Earth. It's about like all kinds of things like simulation theory. It's disproving gravity and physics. Like, it's a whole bunch of things all put together.
I kind of want
still a lot of unknowns that he doesn't know either.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to, because it seems the flat earthers are more into disproving a global thing rather than proving what's beyond what they believe as Earth.
Yeah.
They didn't really have he didn't really have an answer for outside of Earth if you were to break out of it. Like the Truman Show, or I said,
I don't think any of them do.
Think about how you would answer that, though, if he's talking about if the truth of existence in his ideology is that it is all a closed system entirely, then like you wouldn't really have an answer for that,
Yeah.
I really wanted to ask him because
that's why I asked about
I didn't get a chance
about it.
But I think that's part of him like nailing fucking like armor onto his argument, though. Is like, just having things that like, if you can't explain the thing, then the thing is part of a different theory, like simulation theory. Like, so if it's something that doesn't make sense in the framework of like regular reality or just flat Earth reality, then it's now in the reality of simulation theory. Well, I think we actually encountered something pretty interesting today. Because all of us are not flat earthers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So that's fair to say. There's no dissing happening there. Just saying we're not flat earthers, or if you are, it's like popularly it is. I mean, you're gonna get fucking shitted on a little bit, but mostly I don't care. Personally, I don't care.
Yeah.
I even told Mark before he came on that I was like, none of us believe in this. Just to give you a heads up.
It's an interesting theory. It's a bit.
He was cool with it.
I think what we did here is going to
It's a bit
evolutionize
weird
the
to me,
ways that
but-
the pod actually goes through from now on. Because before the shitting on things, I think needs to change, and just the open-mindedness. You don't even necessarily have to believe it, but not to shit on it.
Just be discussing the thing.
And I before those podcasts, I was actually one of the biggest contributors.
Shitters.
You a big shitter.
Because I don't believe in most conspiracy things, but
Big
I still
shit like a dinosaur did.
I don't believe in the whole flat Earth thing still, but it was interesting to hear all about it. So I think I should keep that open mindednness. I think that should be as a whole in the podcast to keep an open mind to it.
Yeah,
and
it's interesting how factional it is too. I didn't even know that was going to be like a thing that came up. Knowing that there are different factions.
I thought we were.
I knew about that from the documentary. That's like a big thing in it because have the other faction in there who in the documentary they made it really seem like very gang typey, like very territorial. Well, yeah, where it's like they wouldn't get along, but they do get along. You know, like in the documentary I watched, it made them seem like that. Like they're like, "Urgh."
He did the only time one point. What did he say? When he said, "Our people believe" or whatever. That feeling gives me. I just don't trust things in unified things like that. Well, our people, this people, like it's very like tribal. It's almost like you're gonna be blind to other ideas. But he wasn't like that. Like he was very open to other things and said, if you're not willing to do this, then don't look at that. He was very open. He was very open. It wasn't like you need to believe in this. You need to whatever. That's what I thought when he came on. He was gonna be this like weird dude, and then right off the bat, and I get it. People
put me at ease like instantly.
Yeah, well, that's a very good speaking.
Because I was
voice.
nervous.
Actually, he has a very easygoing voice, and
he's done it a lot.
Yeah, he's very well spoken, especially for an amateur podcast for ours, which I didn't think we were going to be able to keep up with.
Yeah, he was a solid fucking guest.
Really very
like I want to have more guests now.
Like we still joked around how we joke around
and
at parts.
And we did,
and he was laughing too. And
we did it appropriately, and I had to bite my tongue. Oh my god!
Bring him on the Fall of Medinvard.
Oh god!
Let's bring him to our D&D table.
Like Casey, had he listened to our pod before?
I don't know. And the reason why I was quiet, it wasn't because I was just like sitting here. It's because all my questions he just kept answering, or like he would just like because when he'd throw another theory in, and then it would answer another question that I had. I'm like, man, he's
it was funny because
I was like, I don't know what to ask him now.
I legit was going to ask about fracking and like digging too deep. And then he brought up fracking. And I was just like, holy shit. And I was just like, well, speaking of that, this may sound weird or stupid, but if you dug far enough, like what would you see? Is it like a fucking cartoon? You dig a hole in something to spy on something on the other side?
See, going in, I wasn't, probably because I had seen the documentary, I wasn't too concerned on what it is. The actual theory, although I did learn a lot from him, but I was wondering how someone gets into this because that's
I saw you picking at that, and that was actually interesting because that's a side of the experience, and it's kind of exactly what I imagined.
But it's
well, he said 9 months, and I had to bite my tongue because I was like, so as long as it takes to make a baby, you're over here just fucking honing it. Birthing.
Well, it's like we are doing. It is about flat Earth, but we are interviewing Mark Sargent, so I want to know more about how he got into this.
Him as a person got into it. Some of the little things. I was really curious about fucking environmentalist shit, though, like what everybody else is like on a global scale, if they believe all the global scale stuff. But I didn't think about that until he said it. And was like, well, think about a greenhouse effect, and then I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. Like a green.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to him more about like. I wanted to talk to him more about like gravity and physics and stuff, but I felt this thing that like because of the way that he was like answering the questions, and he was able to like if he didn't have a good answer to something, or well, I'm not gonna say if he didn't have a good answer to something, but if he didn't have an exact answer to something, then he started telling like cool stories and stuff that are like fun to listen to. He'd skirt into more interesting shit, but I wanted to talk to him like more about
Unabomber
like
shit. Yeah, I would want to do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah, because there's like, there's like plants. They show what is called gravitropisms, which is like a response to gravity when all other stimuli is removed from a plant. Like, so basically the stalk knows to grow upright because it can sense gravity, even if it's like removed from all light, all like exchanging air current, like anything
dude,
like that.
That would have been a great,
So,
actually, that would have been a really good fucking question.
I should have brought that up, but I just felt like I was going to get into, I just felt like there was no like really,
It was going to an art, like,
it was going to go to the simulation again. Because like this is a situation. It is a like honestly what he's throwing up is like kind of a foolproof argument because it's just like, well, science can't disprove it. Like this is the argument. You know, it's like science can't disprove it. Science is like wrong, and then where we think that like science is right and interesting or whatever, that could be part of the simulation. And I don't know. There's just like
Marvel comics go above and beyond. Cyclops' powers. They come. He has lasers that come from a universe where the laws of physics don't apply. So his lasers
universe made of lasers.
Yeah. Basically, it's like the laws of Newton doesn't apply.
Those are people. Like, those are people flying out of his eyes, just fucking laser people from the laser universe screaming.
But it's literally, his powers literally don't affect our laws of physics because it's from a universe where they don't exist. And every time, like, the laws of Newton or whatever, it's like whatever gravity, like everything. His eyes don't follow that pattern. Like his lasers come from a universe where our laws of physics don't apply. So it's basically like anything can happen.
I think we should interview you next for Cyclops Earth theory because like this is fucking interesting.
Yeah, it's fucking intense, but that's what I think of with a lot of conspiracy stuff because you can't prove a conspiracist wrong. You can't. Otherwise, you can debunk it 1,000 times. They debunked the dumb bird thing. That was created as a joke. You
can disprove a theorist, but not if they have like if they have like so within one framework. If you had it in just one framework, okay. So if we're saying like so physics are still what we use to like measure everything. So like physics, mathematics, chemistry, that's all on board. But the Earth is flat, not round. You know.
Which is what some of them believe.
Exactly, that's what some of them believe, and that's kind of what I was imagining. But
so they can twist things that you believe to still believe it. Like I mean, you can disprove it, but they're still gonna believe it. They'll find a way to twist around it.
A lot of people frame these types of conspiracy theorists as being like manipulative. And like causing problems in other people's lives by perpetuating things that are like popularly or largely believed to be like false. And I didn't get that feeling from him at all. No. But I did get the feeling that he's like a TV kind of guy. He's having fun doing this. He's like, flat Earth is taking me places that I never imagined I would go. And like, and good for you, pal, dude. You're like going around meeting people, doing shows and shit. So yeah, fucking A.
As soon as
that's one way.
As soon as he came on here, sound like you were watching a talk show. The way he started talking, like he was prepped for the camera, like he was just ready for it.
Yeah,
like,
I want to do more guests so bad, dude.
And oh my god, dude! And I was very envious about it because I wish I could be that convincing at it.
I should have asked Mark about this one theory though. It's like we're on a globe. We're on a globe still, but But it's like a golf ball, and like each little pit is their own little world. So that pit is Earth, and it has an ice wall around it. And then if you go out of that pit, you can go to another one.
He would have gotten so excited about that if you would have said that. I think he would. He might have heard that already, but like I feel like that's something he would be really interested in.
Yes.
I really enjoyed this. I was super fucking nervous.
I thought we all did really good. Because we've been stressing about this.
I felt like I might have said some dumb things. And
I was nervous. I thought about saying I'm not going to come. I thought about saying like I'm not going to go.
I almost did the same thing. I almost was going to say I was going to say I'm sick.
Okay, Justin, we got to do this outro real quick so Mike doesn't have to sift through all this. All right, thank you guys for tuning in to our Flat Earth episode featuring Mark Sargent. He said to find him anywhere, just go on any search engine and type in Flat Earth and Mark, and you'll possibly find your way to him. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Casey.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jumbo Joe.
I'm Nate Nasty.
Thank you and good night.
Yeah, thank y'all.